What's going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler, coming at you guys today with a benchtop build video. I don't do a lot of these. You guys will have to let me know down below if you enjoy this style of content, and maybe I can make it better as I go. I don't do this a lot, so I'm truthfully not very good at it. But today we're looking at the Vanquish VRD Stance RTR. Excellent RTR truck right out of the box. I really enjoyed driving this. But I already have a VRD carbon kit fully built. So this is just kind of like coming up short in every way compared to my carbon kit. It's an excellent truck, don't get me wrong. I really like it. But compared to my carbon kit, it's not there. So what I'm going to do is make it its own thing. It's going to be its own experience with this truck. Now on my carbon kit, I went with aluminum housings. I did the behind the axle servo mount with the stubby VFD conversion, did an outrunner motor in it, and some fancy wheels and tires. We did 3D printed sliders for the Toyota hardbody, and those are from Shrink RC. So before I converted this from an RTR, I did let my buddy Zach over at Hobby Drop go out and run it as is along his favorite trails. Zach does an excellent job. He's a smaller YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out Hobby Drop, be sure to go over there and check him out. He had a great time with the truck and managed to keep it in good shape. So thanks, Zach. I appreciate that. So let's dig into what we have and what our plans are for the truck. Not really any mystery. You can see the carbon rails sitting back here behind the truck. Let's bring those into the foreground. These are from Brazin Scale RC. This is their Hardline chassis. So this one has an angled skid. They also have a flatline chassis, which both of these chassis are VRD replacement chassis, so that all the components will still bolt on and be compatible with the product. So thank you very much to Brazin Scale for sending this over my way. I got this when I heard that the RTR was going to be a thing. And the RTR happens to come with aluminum rails, so this is a perfect application of, hey, you know what? Let's get rid of the aluminum, let's go to some cool carbon fiber, and we're gonna change up a few things with like our shock mounting position, the actual belly height, and then, maybe some other small details like I mentioned, the belly height. This is actually lifted to give you a little extra added belly clearance when braking over obstacles, but it still maintains the 6-degree skid. So we're going to take off one of our chassis rails and overlay it on this later and take a look at how much they really are different. And then also, because my VRD carbon kit has F10 portal axles and it's a VRD truck, I'm going to go ahead and swap to straight axles. As much as I really love the F10 portal axle, it's probably my favorite axle. A close second would be the F10 straight axle because it's got all the same awesome steering angle. We have all the same awesome servo on axle mounts, and we got a brass knuckle option from SSD right there. And then I've got an underdrive gear in the rear. So we're gonna cover more in depth some of the details of this kit swap and why I'm doing some things the way that I am doing them. And the goodies don't stop there. So we've got a lightweight machined VFD gear set. So we've got the transfer case gears, which also include 21% overdrive versus the stock 6%. And the stock transmission has sintered gears in there, and these are machined lightweight. So these are a great upgrade for strength as well as taking weight out of the chassis. And then I happen to have a couple titanium links that I'm going to swap on the front lower of the truck because I have high clearance links in the rear that would match these front lowers. So we're gonna go ahead and swap those out as well. And yeah, it should be fun. We're gonna tear this truck apart, do an axle swap, do a chassis swap, do a full transmission rebuild, do a little bit of link work, and we're probably gonna swap out the wheels and tires too. It's time to get to it, start tearing things apart. All right, so what are we gonna get started on first? I think that we should do the front lower links first. We're gonna turn that into a combination of an axle swap. So we're gonna pull the front axle out, replace the front lowers, and then reinstall the front straight axle. All right, front axle is out. Just need to take this drive shaft off, and we're replacing the stock servo with our Reefs 777 that's already mounted on the axle. The axles are already built. I actually got these parts while Zach had the truck, so I assembled what I could while it was gone. Now that it's back, it's time to get cracking. All right, so the way I did this is I removed the links out of the rod ends in the skid plate, and then I installed the titanium on one end and then swapped the other rod ends from the front edge of the link onto the front edge of the titanium. Now, this is an actual larger diameter link as well, and it's titanium, so it's a stronger material. I kind of wish Vanquish would have gone just a little bit more on the links that were included with this truck. I ended up bending one on a big tumble. It's hard to say if like a stronger link would have bent as well. It's a possibility, but overall, I just would have liked to seen a little bit beefier link that I know they're capable of. They do good work. But if you want to swap out to titanium links, Vanquish does sell individual or pairs of titanium links in all sorts of lengths, literally in 2mm increments. Now, the lower link, as I measured it, was an odd number, and they only sell even numbers. So I went a little long, which is going to give me more caster angle and actually roll my axle back just a little bit, which I tend to like in my builds. You can also go the other way, go a little short, and it will stand your axle up a little more vertical, but that's kind of your preference there. For reference, they are titanium 104mm links if you're looking to replace your front lowers on the VRD. Now, I had a leftover on top of servo on axle mount leftover from my VRD carbon kit because I swapped to a behind the axle mount, so that left me with an additional one. But if you were to just go from portal to straight axle, you can use the exact same mount from the portal axle that's included and put it on your straight axle. So just so you know, let's go ahead. So when I put a front 4-link or a rear 4-link in, I like to just set the axle in there, lift up the lower links so they're just kind of sitting back here out of the way, and then install my uppers, and then we'll install our lowers. So these are MIP ball end drivers for drills, and I'm a big fan. Definitely takes trigger discipline to use a drill that serious on an RC, so it will strip out plastic before you even notice it. But if you're building an entire kit, I cannot recommend a drill enough. It's so worth it. So this is typically the point when I am watching people on YouTube, is when I'm working on my trucks. So you guys will have to let me know, what are some of your favorite channels to watch? Just getting a quick idea of how that 2mm, or I guess 1mm difference has affected our caster, and it's very, very minimal. Like, our servo's just kicked back, just a touch. So I wouldn't be afraid at all to actually just go ahead and advise people to get the 1mm longer, and that will give you more caster angle on your knuckle, and I think that you will enjoy that setup. Right, so we got our truck straight axle swapped with servo on axle. We'll route the wires later, not gonna worry about it right now. Also gonna swap motor and ESC in this video too. So we're doing a full electronics rebuild on this truck, chassis swap, axle swap, transmission rebuild, lots of good stuff. At this point, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this side of the chassis rail off. We're gonna compare it to the Brazin Scale. Should be only every screw in the side of the chassis that you see. So that's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, assuming 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, at least, to get this thing out of here. Let's get to it. I have this magnet strip up here where I put all my tools so I can keep my work area a little cleaner, and when I'm done, I just slap my tool back up there. If you don't have one of those, Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, I don't know, anywhere you can get a magnet strip to hold your tools, it's choice, especially if you have a dedicated work area and it can just hang out right up there. But we are 25% of the way through our chassis swap. We have one rail off. Now, something I did was take my spare Brazin Scale rail, and I put all the screws that I took out in their places, and then I'm going to take my next rail, and then I'm going to put that in there and then swap all the screws back into it so that I know exactly where they go. So, get all the lengths right and whatnot. That should be quite nice. But let's take a look. Let's see if we can get a better shot here. Up against the wall, get out of the way, Milwaukee. Top is the carbon fiber, so that's our Brazin Scale. Bottom is our VRD. Let's overlay them. Let's overlay the nose to the tail. So they actually extended the tail by about the amount of room between the two holes there. So they made that just a touch longer, which is very interesting. And then we actually need to flip this around, but our shock towers in the rear go up to the same height, but they sit further back. So your shocks are going to stand up more, In the front, they're actually a little further back and they sit a little bit lower. So that should pick up the front of your nose. And then let's swap sides here. And then I did ask Brazin Scale about what makes their chassis different, and look at that, the difference between the carbon fiber and the aluminum rail behind it. Look at the total profile difference coming down the chassis across the belly and then back up. The rear tail section is actually fairly similar, but the advantage in clearance overall goes to the Brazin Scale. So this should be very interesting. So yeah, we have all the same link positions on the chassis side of things. That's how she plays out there. So let's get this thing installed and see how she sits on straight axles. All right guys, here she is. Chassis rails all installed. I think I got all my screws nice and tight. Now we've got the carbon fiber chassis rails, again from Brazin Scale RC. Brazin Scale has other awesome chassis, really innovative designs like their high-low. That's a really performance-based oriented truck. And then they have others where you can do leaf spring truck builds on flat rail carbon chassis. It's really, so check out Brazin Scale if you haven't done that before. So I tore out the transmission to gain a little more access and free room to grab a hold of some of these backing nuts on the chassis. So we're gonna set this aside at this point. Still got the mullet set up at the moment, meaning we left the portal axle in the rear. I don't plan on leaving it that way. I will swap it, but it's probably gonna be the last thing I do at this point. Also tried to get my body mounts lined up as close as I could with the original. So let's see if we were successful in doing that. All right, we moved the body post back one post in the front, which I think effectively moved our entire body backward on the truck. Because like I mentioned, the rear of the body was extended by Brazin Scale, and our body's flush with the rear now. And now the nose, the bumper comes out in front of the nose, but it keeps our body further away on approaching walls, which I typically seem to have more issues bumping my nose into things than I do with dragging my tail off of things. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe later I'll move it forward if I need to. It's really simple, but cool. I get to maintain my factory body post positions, and now I don't have to drill into my body anymore. Change my mind, we're gonna swap the axle now. Fresh Reefs grease in the differentials. I actually really like that Reefs grease. It's very tacky. And then after we install our axle, you always want to check your pinion angle and see if you end up needing to tweak rod ends or anything like that. Our S8Es are leaking oil after some use. Unfortunately, there's 0% surprise from me. This has been my experience every time I've messed with S8Es. But our pinion angle is looking great, just ever so slightly up in the rear, which is no big deal, and the front is slightly pitched down, which again is no big deal. That's because of our longer front lower link. That's gonna give our axle roll it back a little bit more, and that's called your caster. The caster angle is from your pivot screw on the top and bottom. The amount of degrees that is rolled back or forward is your caster angle. All right, I've removed our ESC and our receiver off of this little electronics tray, which is quite convenient. I do like that little design feature right there. These screws are what hold the nose of the transmission to the side supports in the chassis, which we did reinstall in our Brazin Scale, and that all lined up nice. So we're gonna pop our dust cover off, our spur gear and pinion cover off, and then I'm actually gonna go ahead and take this motor out of the transmission because we're gonna drop in a much better system. So they do use these plastic washers on here to increase the surface area so you don't just dent the plastic motor plate, which is a nice little feature. Hobbywing Fusion Pro 2300 kV. Excellent motor, really great low speed control. The ESC is essentially in this piece right here, and then you got your motor built in. So, I mean, combo, awesome. What's going on with the plug with these wires? I had a BEC in here, and then I cut it out to put it in something else. So it's not a detail I'm gonna cover in this video, but I'm gonna resolder the plug, put a JST connection on there, and then we're gonna be able to hook into our Reefs direct power servo. Now this should pop off and reveal two more gears. And that is from our top shaft, which is hooked to our spur gear. And then you've got your reduction going down to this gear, whatever the name is. But these are big, heavy gears. So replacing these is going to save a ton of weight. A little Benchmade action there. It is the 537 Benchmade, aluminum handle, gray Cerakote blade, Tonto edge, and it's got the little glass breaker on there. I actually don't like that much, but it has the deep carry clip and then the standard, you know, Osborne clip, Osborne design lock. So love this thing. Yeah, just look at the difference in how much material is here versus how much material is here. And these are stronger. So like, what an upgrade, man. So awesome. All right, we got our bearing plate all set up. Now we're gonna go ahead and slip this into our top shaft for the transfer case. I'm just making these terms up as I go. So the top shaft coming in has a gear ratio from this gear to this gear, and this sends it to the rear drive shaft. Then there's a gear ratio from this one to this one to this one, which I would assume is creating a higher ratio, which would spin the front output faster, creating overdrive. That's how it works. So that's why there's added gears in here. And so you have your output on this gear and your output on this gear. Because of the different gear ratios, creates overdrive. See, and like realistically, guys, I kind of just stumble my way through this every time. I mean, I don't do it often enough to like really remember, but that's how you do it, you know what I mean? So you got your output shaft bearing on the very tail end there. All our gears, all our bearings are in there. Ooh, you know what? Need to add reefs grease. Less weight in the chassis, stronger gears with overdrive. That's an awesome upgrade. I know that's not inexpensive, and it's not the cheapest way to get overdrive, but it's a really great way to do it. I really recommend going that route if you have the means. All right, here we are, reinstalling the transmission. Making sure our drive shafts are clear there. Well, all right, guys, here we go. We have our Brazin Scale Hardline chassis installed on our VRD, or what was the VRD. So now we've got our VFD transmission installed, got the lightweight gears in there. This has 21% overdrive with the transfer case gears, and then I also put an underdrive ring and pinion in the rear axle as well, because the standard VRD has extra overdrive provided through the portal gearing, but with the straight axles, no portal gearing, so I just changed out the diff in this guy. So this should be sitting right around 33%, but I'm gonna go ahead and put wheels and tires on it and verify that number. Let's plop our body on it. It's not quite RTR, still need to run my servo wires and then get the motor and ESC, get the battery plug swapped on that. But the hardware is all there. There we go, everything's fitting there. Let's run some body clips into this guy. But certainly no big deal there. I hope you guys enjoyed the build of this truck, because I am excited to get it out on the trails, which is one of the reasons I'm doing a video at the workbench. Got our tire test series wheels and tires on here. These are not like officially the wheels for this truck or anything. I swap my wheels and tires around a lot. These are just going to be something to get an idea for what the truck's going to look like. Well, there she is. Got a good low stance. Kind of need to take a step back and take a look at this thing. Servo on axle. Yeah, it sits good. I like the ride height. Belly angle's nice. The rear end is kicked up a little bit higher, which actually adds to that belly angle just a little bit. Obviously, it's just the power button and all that dangling down there, but looking super clean and mean. So here we have our VRD carbon kit on portals, and here we have our VRD RTR on straight axles with the Brazin Scale chassis. Again, thanks to Brazin Scale for sending that chassis over this way. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Vanquish for all their support, and it's been fun working with those guys on their new releases and all that. Got some new tires from Vanquish that just were announced today. The Yokohama Geolander. Excited to get those out on the rocks and see how they do. But overall, I mean, if we line these guys up side by side, straight axle truck is noticeably just hugging the ground, down low, looks aggressive. I think that thing's gonna do some killer vertical lines. The portal rig sitting up a little bit taller. I think our shocks need to settle in a little bit. You know, just lots more clearance on this truck depending on the terrain you're on. We'll change up which truck you may want to go for. But this guy is looking a lot more like my style at the moment. Excited to get these trucks out, see how they perform. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. There will be affiliate links down below you can check out if you want to help support me here on the channel. Go to westdesertwheeler.com or pick up a West Desert Wheeler shirt through the link in the description. Thank you guys. We will see you next time. Keep the rubber side down.